Hi, I'm going to take you on a journey with me. We are going to look at the history of Old Town in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I found so many great stories, but unfortunately I could not include them all in this presentation. I have 3 videos embedded in this presentation. I'm not going to play them as they do not play when I download this to my YouTube channel. But on the last slide are the links to all the videos and the website links of information I thought you might be interested in. I'm excited to bring you along with me on this journey. Come, let's get started. Old Town itself is made up of more than 150 individually owned and operated businesses. It has been the city's cultural heart since its founding in 1706. It is bounded on the north by Mountain Road, on the east by 19th Street, on the south by Central Avenue, and on the west by Rio Grande Boulevard. Before the Spanish colonization, the land was inhabited by the Pueblo peoples. Spanish settlers arrived here early in the 17th century and lived along with the Pueblo peoples here in Old Town. But during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, the Spanish settlers were temporarily driven out. However, in 1692, Don Diego de Vargas resettled the Spanish colonists, reclaiming the region for Spain. Old Town is the original town of Albuquerque, and its roots can be traced back to 1706 when Governor Francisco Cuervo y Valdez established it as a Spanish colonial villa and laid out the government buildings, the plaza, and the church, which is San Felipe de Neri Church and was established in 1706. Over the past 300 years, Spain, Mexico, the Confederate States of America, the United States of America, and then the state of New Mexico have flown flags over these square miles of what has been river, swamp, farmland, vineyards, and desert. It was April 23rd of 1706 when Spaniard Francisco Cuervo y Valdez founded a little villa on the banks of the Rio Grande and named it San Francisco Xavier de Albuquerque. Legitimized as a settlement by the Viceroy of New Spain, the Duke of Albuquerque, it became the newest colony of the territory of New Mexico. What started out as a villa of 18 official families was incorporated as a town in 1885. A few years later, the railroad laid down tracks near Old Town. When a railway depot sign dropped the first R in Albuquerque, the error stuck. In the 1880s, the city's population numbered 2,000. Today, it is the home to over 550,000 people in the greater Albuquerque metro area. Here's a picture of an Indian village located in Old Town. This is a statue of the Spanish conquistadors who started arriving early in the 17th century. This is Don Diego de Vargas, who resettled Spanish colonists in 1692, reclaiming the region for Spain. This is a statue of Governor Francisco Cuervo y Valdez, who established Old Town as a Spanish colonial villa in 1706 and laid out the government buildings, the plaza, and the church, which is the San Felipe de Neri Church, still in Old Town, which has operated continuously since its rebuilding in 1793. This is a picture of Old Town looking northwest from the courthouse when it was in Old Town. I have various maps of Old Town. Here's a 1950s map of Old Town. Now we have a vintage 1950s tourist flyer for Old Town. This is a walking map of Old Town. And here's a fun pillow map of Albuquerque. This was a postcard showing the aerial view of Old Town in the 1950s. Here is a Mexican oven in Old Town circa early 1900s. Here is the Bernalillo County Courthouse when it was located in Old Town. This is Romero Street in Old Town, showing the post office and the meat market on the left side of the street. The convent is on the right. The photo was taken between 1880 and 1889. Here is the Square Deal store, meats and groceries. The store was also the home of the old Albuquerque post office. Several unidentified buildings can be seen to the left of the store. This is the Warpath Trading Post at 305 Romero Street in Old Town. Here's an old adobe residence located in Old Town. This is a picture of a street in Old Town circa 1890. 25 plus years ago, we used to have stagecoaches that would take people for rides. We also had running gunfights staged throughout the day. Old Town was so much fun then. This is a street scene in Old Town taken between 1878 and 1898. This is one of the earliest Italian immigrant businessmen in Old Town who operated the Puerto Rico Saloon and Grocery Store, A. Alessandri, taken in 1898. Another picture of the Puerto Rico Saloon and Grocery taken in 1899. Alessandro Matucci, wearing an apron in the center, first worked as a clerk for his uncle when he came to Albuquerque in 1899. Later on, he assumed control of the business. This is a picture of the exterior of the San Felipe de Neri Church in Old Town, taken in 1881. This photo shows an obstructed view of the San Felipe de Neri Church. Only the twin bell towers and the crucifix are visible behind a group of buildings. In the foreground, a road, a simple fence, and some trees complete the picture. A street in Old Town. The photo was taken between 1880 and 1890. This is where it all began, and it is located on Rio Grande and Central Avenues. It was here that a plaza was laid out, a church was built, and houses were erected, built out of adobe bricks. Portions of Old Town look much like they did 300 years ago. I decided to include the fact that Albuquerque has the world's largest adobe making yard in the world. It is called New Mexico Earth Adobes. It is located in the North Valley at 310 El Pueblo Road Northwest. I went there and made a video of their yard. I also have other pictures of the yard since when I made the video, most of the adobes had already gone out for delivery. Helen, the office manager, told me that as soon as they are made and dried, they are loaded onto their delivery trucks and delivered all over the tri-state area. This is New Mexico Earth Adobe's yard. This is the video of New Mexico Earth Adobe's yard. You can click on the link at the left and bring up the video. We won't watch the video as it doesn't play when I load this up onto my YouTube channel. Here are some pictures of the production to make the adobe bricks that takes place at the adobe yard. Adobe production starts with mixing adobe dirt, straw, and water into mud in the pug mill. Here's the mud in the pug mill, in the mud pit. Workers have laid out the forms for the pour. The next 6 pictures are of Mark, the production manager and president, and Helen, the office manager and vice president, pouring and pulling mud to fill the adobe forms. The adobe forms are laid out in the yard. They start using a tractor to fill the forms from the mud pit. Still filling the forms. They make sure that the mud just goes to the top of the forms. Then they leave the forms so the mud can dry in the hot New Mexican sun. Here's a balloon flying over their yard. What a fun picture. After the adobe bricks are thoroughly dried, they are scraped of excess dirt and turned on their sides to wait to be loaded onto pallets and trucks. Here's Helen turning the adobes on their edges after the form has been removed. Stacking adobes on a truck for delivery. Here's stacking adobes on pallets. Pallets of adobe bricks that are ready for delivery. Heading out, pallets of adobes are ready and loaded, taking off for delivery. Next, we're going to go to the San Felipe de Neri Church. The San Felipe de Neri Church, located on the north side of the plaza, had Gothic features added between 1868 and 1890. The original church was built in 1705 to 1706, but it collapsed around 1792 because of the weather. Some of the original adobe is still there. It was rebuilt in 1793 and has operated continuously since that time. The church does date back to 1706 and was originally founded under the direction of a Franciscan priest, Fray Manuel Moreno. The cathedral itself wasn't built until 1793, and it is one of the oldest surviving buildings in Albuquerque. The first church was dedicated to Francis Xavier and then later renamed after St. Philip Neri. Built in 1793, the Spanish colonial San Felipe de Neri Church, bordering Old Town's Plaza's north end, is one of the oldest buildings in the city. Its parish and original structure, in fact, date all the way back to the city's founding in 1706. The rest of the structure collapsed in the winter of 1792. During the Victorian era, the church was remodeled under Bishop, later to become Archbishop Jean-Baptiste Lamy, in a more Gothic revival style. The following four pictures are the church from the 1880s up until present day. The priests of that era served as teachers. Around 1877, they sent for Sister Blandina Segal to run the first school, boys only. Our Lady of the Angels School, north and adjacent to the church, opened with only 2 classrooms. The sisters urged the church to allow them to teach according to age, thus creating the first graded public school in New Mexico. This is a video I went to Old Town and made about the church. The video can be played if you click onto the link to the left of the picture. I'm not going to play this video, but the last tab in my presentation will have all the links to the different videos that I have, and it will have different websites of things I think that might be of interest to you. Sister Blandina's convent and the Old Town Public School was located at 205 North Plaza Avenue, Northwest. Sister Blandina Segal was an Italian-born missionary who took her vows with the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati, but she was most famous for her work in the American frontier. She ministered to the likes of Billy the Kid and various Native American tribes. In 1881, she came to San Felipe de Neri Church in Old Town Albuquerque to establish a convent. It is said that the convent on the west side of the church was the first 2-story adobe built on the dusty plaza. A graveyard had to be moved. When the convent opened, the Sisters of Charity started teaching students, establishing the first public school in Albuquerque. They opened the Old Town Public School and Our Lady of Angels private school in rooms of their newly built convent. Nuns taught at the private school and Jesuit priests taught at the public school. By 1885, the free public school moved to a new brick building on 6th Street and Lomas, near the railroad tracks, in Newtown, as they called it. It was designated Public School Precinct 12. Sister Blandina tried to build an infirmary on the old San Felipe de Neri site, but was recalled to Trinidad, Colorado in 1889. She eventually returned to Albuquerque, and by 1901, she was overseeing the construction of St. Joseph Hospital, which is now Loveless Hospital, located at 715 Dr. Martin Luther King Avenue. She also established the St. Vincent Academy. Turns out she had been recalled to her previous posting in Colorado to defend the nuns' rights to teach in their full religious habits. It was a fight she lost, blaming it on anti-Catholic sentiment. Back home in Albuquerque, the Board of Education also issued an edict that all public school teachers had to wear secular attire. The law went into effect in 1892, so Sister Blandina turned PS 12 into St. Vincent's, a private religious boarding school for girls, and she reopened it in 1895. The school stayed open until 1969. Today, a historic plaque marks the site of Old Town Public School, a 1-story extension of the Sisters of Charity convent with a distinctive wooden cupola on the roof. Sister Blandina is currently being considered by the Catholic Church for sainthood. She would be the first saint from New Mexico. She is the foundress of the Catholic school system here in Albuquerque and the hospitals in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Without the pioneering efforts of Sister Blandina, New Mexico would have found itself set back. The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Santa Fe has opened a process to canonize Sister Blandina, for which it has received the permission of the Holy See. For this, she is honored by the Catholic Church with the title Servant of God. She is the only other individual besides St. Catherine Drexel in New Mexico's 400-year history with the Roman Catholic Church to have a cause open for their beatification and canonization. Because the school was a public one, the sister's salary was paid by the town. Each sister would be paid $12 a month. Later, the sisters, along with the Jesuits, would help to establish a boarding school or girls for girls, the St. Vincent's Academy, the parish school, and St. Joseph's Hospital. A small building attached to the church, which the Sisters of Loretto built, was to be their convent. Unfortunately, the building was in ruins, and a new convent was constructed on March 3, 1881. It was the first two-story building made of adobe here in Albuquerque. During its construction, one corner of the building kept collapsing due to the weather. Sister Blandina had contracted an Italian stonecutter from Santa Fe to help lay a foundation and carry the stonework halfway above the first story. Here's a YouTube video about Sister Blandina. You can click at the bottom of the page to watch the video. Picture from 1891 of the San Felipe de Neri Church showing the Sister Blandina convent attached to it. This is the old St. Joseph's Hospital in Albuquerque that is still in operation as the Loveless Hospital. Here's a picture from 1921 of the Old Town Elementary School. This is a picture from 1892 of students and teachers outside the First Ward School in Albuquerque. In this period, Father Padilla began teaching classes for orphans whose parents had been killed by Indians. In the early 1890s, his school became a public county school, Los Padilla, which then mushroomed into 6 rooms in 1912. As Newtown developed near the railroad tracks, the Armijo brothers, Perfecto, Mariano, and Jesus, gave the church a tract of land to the north. There, St. Vincent Academy was established in a large 2-story building at what is now 6th Street and Lomas, and staffed by the Sisters of Charity. The sisters in 1893 opened Immaculate Conception School downtown as an elementary school for boys. 10 years later, they added girls and continued to add grades until the school had all 12 grades by 1924. The Sisters of Charity also opened day schools in Barelas and Las Terranas. Sister Blandina Segal led the effort to establish and guide these early schools. Now we're going to move on to the Blucher House. This is the Blucher House. It was built in 1912. This is Blucher's farm. At the heart of this district is the original Central Plaza that is lined with over 100 quaint little shops. Like everything else in Albuquerque, a visit to Old Town is a delightful mix of old and new, with sites that range from the Civil War cannons to the San Felipe de Neri Church, just off the main plaza. The La Hacienda restaurant preserves the core of what once was a large Italian-style brick home constructed in 1898. A man named Herman Blucher, who arrived in Albuquerque around 1882, constructed the house with Sophie, his wife. The architectural style had become less popular on the East Coast, but arrived simultaneously with earlier and later styles with the railroad. Herman got a job working for a local produce farmer, and over the years, he gradually learned the operational aspects of the farm and produce business. By 1898, he had amassed a considerable fortune and went into a business for himself. Blucher's market garden was more than 20 acres in extent and had an unusual irrigation pond in the center near the northwest edge of what is now Tigway Park. The pond was stocked with fish, and according to Old Town folklore, residents would occasionally ice skate on the frozen pond in the winter. Blucher's business was also the first farm equipment dealership in Albuquerque that introduced draft horses to the city and experimented with the cultivation of tobacco in the Rio Grande Valley. Later, the house was the home of Dr. Nolteen's family, until it was later remodeled into the hacienda dining rooms. Leon Watson added the new layout of the building, an addition that wrapped around the mansion itself sometime before 1953. A very old adobe structure which had been rented out by the Army for use as officers' quarters and which later housed the first Albuquerque Academy in 1879, was razed before construction of the Blucher House began. The Blucher House was once a two-story Queen Anne brick mansion, one of the four large homes that graced the plaza before the First World War. The interior of the house featured pine woodwork stained to simulate oak, a magnificent staircase to the second story, etched glass door panels, stenciled room wall trim, and a large upstairs linen cabinet. During the publicization of the 1950s, the Her House was adapted for restaurant purpose by the removal of the high-hipped roof, porches, and wings. Adobe walls are added, and stucco was applied over the brickwork. The stucco covering the brickwork was meant to imitate adobe, and a portico with rough-hewn posts and beams, corbel bracket capitals, projecting vigas, and a ceiling of latillas was added around two sides. Stripped of its details, the original house nonetheless remains visible at the back. The adjacent structures of adobe and wood, now occupied by shops, were part of Blucher's farm. In 1954, the building changed ownership again. The Brown family, who owned the La Placida dining room next door, decided to relocate their restaurant to a larger locale. They renamed the restaurant La Hacienda, and during its peak years, it was the largest and busiest restaurant in Albuquerque. Many celebrities of the day dined there. Here's a picture of the La Hacienda restaurant and Indian gift shop. Picture of the La Placida dining room taken in 1940. Here's a 1970s picture of the La Placida dining rooms. This is a picture of the Native Americans selling jewelry on the La Placida porch in Old Town. This is the portico that was built when they redesigned the home for the restaurant. Old Town Gazebo and Plaza. This is a picture of the Old Town Gazebo after it was renovated. The Old Town Gazebo was originally an old stone net structure, but was renovated to feature an adobe-style framework. The gazebo is the heart of Old Town. The Civil War marched into Old Town in 1862 with the Battle of Albuquerque, which consisted of Union troops logging cannonballs into what is now the west side of Old Town, while the Confederates ducked. Union Colonel E.R.S. Canby stopped the shelling when he discovered many civilians in the line of fire. Undaunted, he lured the Confederates up into Harris Canyon, east of town. The tide turned, and the rebels, a Texas unit, retreated. The gazebo is in the center of Old Town Plaza on the site of an old Confederate guardhouse. Many flags have flown over Old Town Plaza. In the 1850s, a 121-foot flagpole was erected by the U.S. Army that was briefly replaced when the Confederate soldiers showed up a decade or so later. Other prominent changes included the picket fence used to replace the original adobe wall in 1881. At the height of the Great Depression in 1935, the Works Progress Administration came to town to replace the picket fence with a stone wall and construct a stone bandstand gazebo in the center of the plaza. The clunky stone addition proved very unpopular. Just 11 years later, a grassroots campaign organized by the Old Albuquerque Historical Society had them torn down and replaced with today's wood, brick, and wrought iron versions. In a 1947 report in the Albuquerque Journal noted that the county commissioners authorized the demolition and the improvements, but they refused to use a nickel of the county's money for the project. The project ended up being privately funded, with two of the city commissioners volunteering to pay for two of the estimated 55 cubic yards of concrete needed for sidewalks out of their own pockets. On the east end of Old Town Plaza sit two M1835 mountain howitzers. The guns were originally placed there by the Texas Brigade, a 3,000-soldier group commanded by H.H. Silby, that raised the Confederate flag over Old Town on March 2nd of 1862. Emboldened by an easy victory, the Southern troops tried advancing toward Fort Union in Colorado, and they were soundly beaten back. And on April 8th of that year, Colonel E.R.S. Canby and his artillery troops started bombarding Silby's fallback position at the Old Town Plaza. By the next day, severely wounded and out of ammunition, the Confederate troops fled, leaving their supplies behind. Not wanting their 8 brass cannons to fall into enemy hands, however, the Confederates buried them under a nearby horse corral. The troops retreated to Texas and the cannons were lost. Some 27 years later, in August of 1887, former Confederate Army artillery officer Trevian T. Teal of El Paso returned to Albuquerque and led a group of locals to the burial spot of the cannons, which was now a chili patch just northeast of the church. It turns out they were Union cannons to begin with that had been captured in Texas by Confederate soldiers at the outbreak of the Civil War. The cannons now visible on the plaza marking the skirmish of Albuquerque are not actually the ones that Major Teal helped unearth. In 1982, worried about vandalism and weather damage, then Mayor Harry Kinney ordered the originals moved to the nearby Albuquerque Museum and replaced with bronze replicas. This is a picture of the Old Town Plaza in the early 1900s. Here's the Albuquerque Old Town replica howitzer cannons. This is the official scenic historic marker in Old Town. Now we're going to move on to the Bottinger Mansion of Old Town. Here's a picture of it. The history of the Bottinger Mansion. Charles Bottinger was born in New York City and his family owned a market in Rutherford, New Jersey. He arrived in Albuquerque around 1893 and worked for Tom Post, who owned the Sunnyside Tavern. The tavern was located across the street on land which is now the Plaza Vieja parking lot. After the death of Tom Post, Charles married Mr. Post's stepdaughter, Miguela, and acquired the Bottinger property. In approximately 1909, the original hacienda was demolished to make way for the new Bottinger Mansion in 1912. Charles was a highly innovative man, and he wanted his new home to contain the most modern conveniences. Designed by local architect Edward Buxton Christie in the American Foursquare style popular when New Mexico was still a U.S. territory, the house was the first residence in Old Town Albuquerque to have gas lighting. The original gas pipes are still located inside the ceilings. There were speaking tubes to all the rooms, pressed tin ceilings in the 3 main rooms, a dumbwaiter to the upper floor. The Bottinger Mansion is one of the few homes in Albuquerque to have a basement. There is only one fireplace in the entire mansion located in the living room, but the coal-fired central heater and the coal cellar were in the basement. When it was built, the Bottinger Mansion was called the Pride of Old Town. In the mid-1930s, a Bottinger grandson, George Gallegos, painted a mural of New Mexico mountains around the upper wall of the Christie Room. Charles Bottinger owned one of the first automobiles in Albuquerque. Charles Bottinger died in 1914. As the Bottinger family fortunes declined, Miguel began to take in boarders for additional income. In the 1940s, the FBI's most wanted criminal, Machine Gun Kelly, was being hunted by lawmen everywhere. Kelly, his girlfriend, and his gang were headed back to Memphis from California, and they checked into the Bottinger under assumed names. They had dyed their hair and purchased new clothes to help conceal their identities. After several days, the owners became suspicious when they noticed that the group always sent a neighborhood boy out to purchase their meals and bring them back to their rooms at the Bottinger. They decided to notify the police, but were overheard by one of the gang members. The gang members quickly left just ahead of the law. However, they were captured shortly thereafter and imprisoned. In 1956, a young Elvis Presley, along with Bill Black and Scotty Moore, performed 2 shows in Albuquerque and stayed at the Bottinger. They left the next day for a show in Amarillo. In the 1950s, a prominent Italian family rented the Bottinger for a very large wedding. Frank Sinatra was a guest, and he performed in the courtyard after the wedding dinner was served. Pieces of the Bottinger property were gradually sold off, and the family donated some land for the San Felipe School just to the east. In approximately 1970, amid a family dispute, relating to inheritance of the property. The Bottinger mansion remained vacant for several years and then was sold outside the family. Over the years, the open porch was closed in and the house became an art gallery, a restaurant, a beauty parlor, and several other business ventures. It became a bed and breakfast in 1989. The 1912 Bottinger Mansion is one of only a few mansions built in Albuquerque and remains virtually in its original form. One of the few properties in the area to escape the Pueblo revival renovation. Today, Bottinger Mansion of Old Town is known as a popular Albuquerque historic bed and breakfast located on the historic Route 66. The Bottinger Mansion is on the National Register of Historic Places and is the only lodging accommodation in the true Old Town Historic District. Now we're going to move on to the Romero House, which became the Frances Lynn Maternity Home, which became the Chaparral Adoption Agency for Unwed Mothers. It is located at 205 Romero Street. This is a picture of the home. Built in 1915 for prominent merchant Jesus Romero, this two-story prairie-style adobe was the last residence to be erected on the Old Town Plaza. At the time, it had already transitioned to mostly commercial real estate, but Romero, owner of a successful grocery, wanted something to rival his pal Charles A. Bottinger's nearby mansion. And overlooking the historic plaza and kitty corner to the San Felipe de Neri Church, Romero House was undoubtedly a home to envy. By July of 1936, however, Romero had moved on and the residence was donated to establish the Frances Lynn Maternity Home. It served as a place for tragically unwed mothers to hide their shame and give birth to their children in privacy. Most of the pregnant girls were shipped in from out of town, as was the fashion of that time. The facility originally employed 15 volunteer directors, a social worker, and a house mother. A 1938 article editorial in the Albuquerque Journal about the home bore the headline, "Young Women Taught to Sew and Cook and Prepare Themselves for Service." Here's a picture of that 1938 article that ran in the Albuquerque Journal. By 1968, up to 16 girls were allowed to enter the home under an assumed name and were not allowed to return a second time. They engaged in small household chores, including cooking and serving meals. All arrived 4.5 to 6 months into their pregnancies, and they paid $5 a day room and board until they gave birth. Invited guest speakers came for weekly teas. The unwed mothers were allowed to leave for shopping and movies in the neighborhood. By 1960, the Lynn home had emerged with adoption agencies, Catholic Social Services, and the Jewish Welfare Fund. If the girls allowed their babies to be adopted, the church paid their bills. If they ended up keeping the child, the mother paid all the medical expenses. By 1970, the facility was renamed the Chaparral Home, although most still knew it as the Frances Lynn Home. Throughout the 1960s and the early 1970s, the United Community Fund covered upwards of 60% of the home's budget, but its days were numbered. By 1972, the Gallup Independent noted that many homes for unwed mothers were closing for a lack of clientele, homes that are moving into other programs, and homes that are wondering how they can afford to stay open when the occupancy rate drops lower and lower each year. Now we're going to head out to the Old Town Farm. This is a picture of the Old Town Farm. The Old Town Farm is owned and operated by Lanny and Linda Toning, as its principal address is 949 Montoya Northwest. The family thinks of the farm as the green heart of the city. Located just west of Old Town and just east of Rio Grande, Old Town Farm is situated on 23 acres in one of the most historic settings in New Mexico. Although Albuquerque was settled in 1706, Pueblo Indians lived and farmed here long before the Spanish arrived, as evidenced by the families finding many pot shards while digging post holes on the property. The Duranis Lateral, which forms the western boundary of the Old Town Farm, is reputedly the oldest registered irrigation ditch in North America. To this day, the Madre de Duranis provides water to irrigate their pastures. Since 1977, the Old Town Farm has operated as a horse facility and produce farm. But in the years since, the city has truly grown up around it. The bioparks, the museums, and the bike paths now surround the farm, all within walking distance. The Toning's dream for Old Town Farm is to keep its farming character while adjusting to its urban location. Toward that end, they invite you to check out the various activities on their website, and I do have their website listed on the last page of this presentation, and then go by for some good food and music at Bike and Coffee. In the beginning, they have cultivated a large produce garden at Old Town Farms. Their extended Albuquerque family was always the beneficiary of the many fruits and vegetables coming out of the garden. But several years ago, they decided to expand. With an enthusiastic reception from neighborhoods around them, as well as their bike and coffee customers, Old Town Farm began selling fresh farm from the garden produce every weekend. Still, the cafe itself will always be the biggest produce customer, turning everything from the garden into the freshest dishes in town. This is a picture of the outside of the Coffee at Old Town Farm. Here's a picture of the Old Town Farm pickup outside the La Placita dining room in the 1970s after delivering produce. We're going to move on to the Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town. It's not right in the Old Town, it's a little bit further towards I-40. Explore southwestern charm at the Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town. Conveniently located off Interstate 40, Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town provides guests with a unique blend of contemporary amenities and traditional southwestern hospitality. Each room in this distinguished hotel is equipped with a work desk, a seating area, and most rooms offer the luxury of a private balcony. Albuquerque is just Hotel Albuquerque is not just known for its comfortable lodging, but also for its exquisite on-site dining. Guests can savor Mexican and American cuisines at Garduño's Restaurant and Cantina. I believe it's the last Garduño's in Albuquerque. Or they can enjoy a vibrant nightlife at the stylish Q Bar and the historic Casa Encínica nightclub. Beyond gastronomy, the hotel boasts an outdoor pool, a relaxing hot tub, and a fitness center with the option for in-room massages to enhance guest relaxation further. They are within walking distance to the New Mexican Museum of Natural History and in close proximity to the Albuquerque International Airport and other major attractions. Whether traveling for business or leisure, Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town invites guests to experience a memorable stay amidst the rich culture and history of Albuquerque. The hotel is a favorite destination for weddings and other family celebrations. Next, I'm going to be showing a series of pictures of Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town. This is an outside dining in one of the courtyards. This is a different courtyard. This is what you see when you enter the vestibule at the Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town. Here's a different view of the vestibule at the hotel. Some more dining at another courtyard. Here's the hot tub at the hotel, the outdoor swimming pool, the front door of the hotel. Christmas at Old Town. Every Christmas, Old Town and the nearby Albuquerque Country Club area transform into a winter wonderland of lights and luminarias. The glowing brown sacks that adorn Albuquerque walkways, churches, and homes each holiday season are called luminarias and date back more than 300 years. The New Mexican tradition began when the Spanish villages along the Rio Grande displayed the unique and easy-to-make Christmas lanterns called luminarias to welcome the Christ child into the world on Christmas Eve. A traditional luminaria is a brown paper bag which has been folded at the top, filled with a couple of cups of sand and a votive candle. There have been walking tours of both areas for decades, along with the holiday stroll, the Christmas tree lighting, and ghost tours. My family and I always went out to eat at the La Placita dining room because it was my parents' wedding anniversary on Christmas Eve. After eating, we would go shopping and on a walking tour of Old Town and Country Club to see the lights. The Luminaria bus tour takes place on Christmas Eve in Albuquerque, featuring a festive journey through historic neighborhoods adorned with luminarias. The tour typically starts at the Albuquerque Convention Center and includes stops at Old Town and the Country Club area, lasting approximately 45 minutes. Tickets go on sale on Black Friday and usually sell out quickly. This postcard of the Luminaria display at San Felipe de Neri Church that are lit on Christmas Eve. Another postcard showing the lights and, as the Spanish call them, farolito display at Christmas. Another postcard showing the Luminaria display at the Old Town Gazebo. San Felipe de Neri Church and part of the Old Town Plaza. Hotel Albuquerque at Old Town Luminaria display. Old Town Plaza. The lighting of the Christmas tree in Don Luis Plaza. Various decorated street at Old Town. Old Town Plaza dressed up for Christmas. Old Town Holiday Stroll. This year, the Old Town Holiday Stroll will be on Friday, December 5th, 2025 from 5 to 9. You can join the city of Albuquerque for the kickoff of the holiday season. There will be entertainment by local performers that fill the streets as you can check off your holiday shopping list. The lighting of the tree is a continuing Old Town tradition. The tree is located in Plaza Don Luis. A 30-foot sequoia replica tree is erected and decorated so the community can carry on this time-honored celebration. The lighting ceremony will begin at 6 p.m. and end with a countdown to a cheerful and bright display. Entertainment follows in Plaza Don Luis, on the gazebo, and throughout plazas in the area. Here's a picture of the Christmas tree in Don Luis Plaza and all the people who pack in there for the lighting of the Christmas tree. Here's a listing of the various entertainment before and during the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. More entertainment on Romero Street and Church Street and at Poco a Poco. Dancers in the Old Town Gazebo for the holiday stroll entertainment. Stroll, shop, and eat local at the Holiday Stroll in Old Town Albuquerque. Here's a listing of the different places to stroll. The Albuquerque Museum, the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science, and the Explora Science Center and Children's Museum all stay open from 5 to 9 p.m. for the Holiday Stroll. The Holiday Stroll is a free public event and is a rain or shine event. Next, we move on to the ghost tours. Old Town Albuquerque. Explore over 300 years of haunted history and Old Town folklore on a 90-minute walking ghost tour of Old Town. Supposedly, tall tales will suddenly come to life as you hear the stories of the Spanish spooks, the Civil War-era phantoms, and once-dead bank robbers who call the desert night their own. You will be guided through darkened alleyways and past historic buildings with the help of a local guide with an old-fashioned lantern to light the way, while searching for the unexplained phenomena that makes Albuquerque one of the most haunted cities in the United States. The next 7 slides are various pictures of the ghost tour, their guide, and incredible pictures that are available to be taken in the plaza to remember your journey. This is the parking lot at Old Town Plaza Vieja at the end of our historical journey through Old Town with me. This last slide is a listing of all the various videos that are included within this presentation and different websites that I thought you might be interested in. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I'll see you when you come to visit Old Town Albuquerque. Bye.